Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this morning or this tonight, wherever you're from. I'm already so excited to see all the places that everyone's calling in from in the chat. So keep that up. My name's Andrea. I'm going to be your host today, and we have Vijay here as well from Mixpanel. Vijay, do you want to wave and just say hi?
Hi everyone, Vijay here. Really happy to be here talking to you all.
Awesome. So just to introduce myself, I'm on the marketing team at Notion, and I get to do awesome things like interview customers like Mixpanel and BJ's team, and just help people understand like what's the best ways to use Notion to solve your problems and work better together. Um, and then just a quick housekeeping item. If for some reason we're having Zoom problems or like Vijay and I drop off the call, just stay on the line for 5 minutes to give us a chance to rejoin. And if we don't rejoin by then we'll just reschedule the rest of the session. So I just don't want to leave you guys hanging if anything happens. And cool, like I said, we have Vijay from Mixpanel's engineering team here today and super excited to go through his team's Notion setup and get the insider tour. So Vijay, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Vijay. I lead a couple of engineering teams at Mixpanel as a tech lead manager, primarily focused on building really great products to help our customers get insights from their product data. And so specifically, I lead two teams, one that's focused on our core analytics platform to make it really fast and delightful for people to use. And the second team is focused on query performance to make our queries return quickly and cost efficiently. And I'm really excited to be here today to show the team's workflows and really hope it's helpful to other engineering, product, and design teams that are looking to get their teams organized in one tool.
Yep, definitely. And I think it'll be great, BJ, to hear from you, like what were the challenges that you were facing in terms of just getting your team's workflows productive and efficient, and then like how you actually did that in Notion so that, other people can get inspiration who are on product and engineering teams, like you said. Cool. So, before we start, some of you on the call may not be familiar with Notion or Mixpanel, so just wanted to explain quickly. Notion is, an all-in-one workspace for notes, projects, wiki, etc. So basically, we're building software to help teams be more productive and do it all in one space, and reduce the tool overload that we all seem to be facing these days. And then Mixpanel is a product analytics platform that makes it really easy to see how your users are interacting with your product. So really excited for us both to be here. Cool, let's just jump right in. So Vijay, can you tell me a little bit about like, how did this all start? Like, why did you start using Notion?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually started using Notion mostly for personal use, just for journaling and task tracking and just, my daily life. And I've tried a bunch of task tracking tools before. I think one of the things that really stood out with Notion was the fact that it appealed to the engineer in me a little bit. It's like super customizable and I could kind of optimize it for my workflows. So I really liked it and just brought it to my team at work earlier this year, back in February. And was just kind of like, hey, let's try out this new thing for task tracking and writing up project docs for our upcoming projects. And I think, yeah, given that the team was engineers, they saw the power and flexibility of it. And it kind of just ballooned since then, especially when we all had to go completely remote in March due to COVID. It sort of became like the central place where we where we put all of the things that we would have otherwise said verbally in the office. We wanted to get our knowledge organized in one place. And it kind of grew from there where other teams noticed we were using Notion, wanted to try it. And gradually, I think in June or so, it made sense for us to just go enterprise-wide and get the whole company on Notion, just to have the benefits of having all of our information in one place and in one tool that everyone knew how to use. So it was really helpful to rally people around the same goals, the same projects, especially in the time when we're working from home most of the time.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I mean, we hear that a lot where like one team starts using it and then slowly like it spreads to other teams because it just makes so much more sense for everyone to be in the same place when we don't have like a physical office, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's nice to have one place that everyone's updating and when everyone knows how to use the same tool, it really helps get in sync.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine like from like working on product and engineering teams, like you have to be talking to so many other different cross-functional teams, right? Talking to sales and marketing, and like making sure everyone is aligned. So when you don't have all that like ambient information in an office, then you need something to replace that feeling, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So this is awesome. What tools were you using before you had Notion, and like what were some of the reasons why like those weren't cutting it?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we, like probably many startups that are growing, have tried on a whole bunch of different tools and use different ones for different use cases. Like we used Confluence for the wiki use case. We used Google Docs and Drive um, for long form documents. We used Jira for task tracking. And frankly, it kind of just became this free for all where different teams use different bits and pieces of these for particular use cases. So it became, you kind of had to understand how a team works before interacting and communicating with them, which gets quite tricky, especially at scale. And so, yeah, I think the need to rally around one thing was definitely one big selling point of Notion for us. And in particular, it's just that whole, like, you don't have to do an extra hop to figure out what is this other team using for task tracking. It's just, okay, it's in Notion somewhere. I know I can just navigate the hierarchy and find it. So in particular at Mixpanel, I think the main use case that really took off was the wiki, basically like a hierarchical knowledge base that sort of everyone in the company can self-serve on information from any other team. I think that was definitely the big one, but we also use it for task tracking and long form documents as well. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I know we hear a lot of our customers start on something like Confluence, but then it sounds like the same problem that you were having, where like, you know, people would be updating different things, and then like you don't know what's actually accurate, and like that's even worse than if people like weren't creating any documentation, because now you just have like a mess of stuff, right?
Right, exactly. It's like a lot. It's like years of kind of tribal knowledge sort of encoded into these tools, which is hard to reason about.
Yeah. Um, so like the way that you described the story was like, oh, just my team started using it, and then like everyone else started using it. It just seems so like magical, right? But I think maybe for a lot of people on this call who are working at large companies and are like, okay, maybe I'm really like bought into using a new tool and like ditching our old stuff, but like how do I convince everyone else? Do you have any like tips for how you manage the transition?
Yeah, I definitely made it seem easier than it was. For a while, there was just like a meme that I was that Notion guy at the company, so it definitely was not a seamless transition. I think, yeah, starting bottom up and like proving value with the team was really helpful. I mean, even for me to just validate would this thing actually, like, it works for me. Does it work for at least like one other person or five other people? So starting bottom up was good. I think the other thing is just being really explicit about what are the cross-functional use cases that that a tool like this has, and being creative about that. Like one of the cool things about Notion that appeals to my engineer's mindset is just that you can customize it a lot and, you know, build a system around information. And so if you can use that to solve a particular problem, like that we'll talk about later, for example, is the product roadmap. Like how do we centralize engineering, product and design is saying, here's what we're building, and go to market is self-serving on that. So like making that use case super clear is really helpful. Like this is a specific thing that will be better. And then the last thing I'd say is it was really tempting for me to just migrate everything from Confluence or Google Docs or whatever into Notion. And I actually think that would have been a bit of a trap to try to just do that all at once, because then we would inherit a lot of the sort of like cruft and debt that we had accrued in the other tool. And it was worth the effort to just kind of comb through everything, like just do one big pass and just figure out, okay, these are the 10% of things that are definitely like valuable and active, and the rest we can just keep in an archive somewhere. And if people really need it, we can migrate it. But it turns out most people don't need it, and it lets you start off really clean, which I think the cleanliness and simplicity of it definitely is a selling point for people.
Yeah, it's like spring cleaning basically, right? Just taking
Yeah,
that opportunity.
yeah, exactly. It's yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of like when you get a new laptop and you're like, should I just migrate everything over, or should I just like start fresh, right? And it's like a
Yeah.
nice feeling when you're like, okay, let me just move over the things that are actually useful and important, and like let's leave everything else, but keep it somewhere safe in case we ever need it, right?
Right, exactly. It's really easy to move stuff later anyway. So it's like my personal like philosophy around this is to just like simplify a little bit extra, and yes, there'll be a random request like, oh, I don't see this anymore. And then great, you can just add that back and it's fine. So it ended up working out really well to simplify that way.
Right. Cool. So, just that, I think that's great background to understand like why you made the switch, right? And can you just talk a little bit more about like what were the general problems or challenges that your team was facing that like Notion has really helped to solve?
Yeah, I think two big ones. The main one is we were all going remote, and I think we just can't rely on the standard kind of ad hoc means of communication in the office anymore. We have to have something a bit more centralized for some, like every decision that we make. It's important not only for like new hires that are coming in and kind of feeling lost from the get-go from working remote, or even just it's, memory is very short. Like Slack is a very short-term memory. Like you'll write something there and completely forget about it. So it was just good to document every decision with a bunch of context in the right place so people can find it. The second one is being able to communicate across the company. Like we're a global company. We have, several hundred employees across engineering, product design, sales, marketing. And it was just really helpful to have one place where we can communicate. So everybody knows what everyone else is working on and where to find that. So I think those were the two main things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think like one of the things here in this GIF, like what we'll go through in the demo is like, oh, you can actually organize your information in intuitive hierarchies. So like, people can kind of self-serve by themselves and go find the information that they need, even if they're not on your team, right? Even if they're like a go-to-market stakeholder, they can kind of peek and see the details for themselves. So I'm looking forward to seeing you show that the whole roadmap situation and how people actually use it.
Yeah, definitely. The hierarchy is key.
Yeah. So do you want to just, let our audience know today, like what we're going to go through and like what do you use Notion for primarily?
Yeah, sure. So I think the three main use cases we'll cover is how we built our custom roadmap and kind of it's something that engineering, product, and design keeps alive, and the rest of the company can self-serve and consume from, so that there's kind of one central place for what are we building. The second is sort of a daily driver use case, kind of like a virtual whiteboard for how we run standups and kind of manage tasks side by side, especially since we're not in a real room with a real whiteboard. It's great to have kind of this virtual setup in Notion. So that's what we'll primarily cover today.
Cool. Great. And then let's just dive straight into the demo. But right before that, I just want to see if there's any questions. Because we want to make sure we answer those. Let's see. So from Michael, why did you switch from Confluence? Can't you do exactly the same things in Confluence? So I think Vijay, you explained a little bit already, but do you want to maybe like go into a little more detail on like what specifically were the pain points in Confluence?
Yeah, sure. I think there's definitely an element of just usability and UX that if a tool is delightful, you will want to spend more time in keeping it up to date. And I think that's more of just a psychological element of maybe at some point Confluence reached some breaking point where it was too complicated, but even just day to day, it was not like something super easy and intuitive to use with nice shortcuts and the ability to drag and drop things and rearrange hierarchies when they became stale. So I think just UX making it easier to clean up constantly is definitely one thing. The other thing is it being all in one, meaning you would have tasks in the same place, means it's kind of a forcing function to confront the mess every day because you have to go and like look at your tasks and update them all the time because that's just like your daily thing. And then there, because those are linked to wikis and linked to other pages, you again have this incentive to keep things clean. I think the other thing is just customizability of being a lot easier, being able to start with a simple to-do list and then turning that into a board and then making each of the page, the cards in the board its own page and then making that a hierarchy, et cetera, is just it's kind of a more intuitive base. I think in theory you could do all that hierarchy with Confluence. It's just many more clicks and doesn't inspire joy. So that's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we hear a lot of times like Confluence is where docs go to die. And I think like the nice thing about Notion is like you have infinite levels. And again, like they're very intuitive and you can link everything together, right? So you have a task that's related to meeting notes, that's related to this bigger project, that's related to this spec, and like all of them are together and bundled in that context. So it's really easy to find. Cool. We'll have more time for questions later, but want to give enough time to go through the demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Vijay, do you want to start sharing yours?
Sure. Yeah. So I can walk this through.
Cool. Yeah, let's start with your roadmap. Do you want to just like kind of walk us through and then maybe like point out the most useful features?
Yeah, sure. So basically, our product roadmap is this page that within it has a database in Notion, which is basically a way to kind of organize a collection of information. And the way we visualize this database is so first of all, every row in this database is a project, and this is kind of like high level. It's not like every task that everybody works on, but it's more what are sort of like each one of these is an initiative that 2 to 3 people are spending 6 to 12 weeks on. So it's kind of what are the high level things we're building as a company. And the way it's organized here is by status or availability. So it's really clear, what are things in research, what are things that we just have internally versus in beta or ultimately generally available for all of our customers. And yeah, that's the core of it. It's basically a way to organize like what are we building and what's coming up next.
Yep. And it's nice you have this FAQ here, right? For people who are not like working in it every day and kind of see like, oh, how do I use this? Like, what can I expect somebody to ship? I feel like that's the one where like people just keep asking on Slack, right? So now they can just go in and answer the question for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. Do you want to click into one of the cards and just show us what you include inside each project?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, this is kind of meant to be a high level, crisp outline of every project we work on. Basically, it's like where we get super clear about what problem we're solving, what directionally does the solution look like, capture kind of a long tail of questions that people might have and serve as a collection point for those questions. And basically anything else that's kind of relevant to the team that's building it. Different teams have their own workflows within a page. Sometimes, like for example, we do retrospectives after everything we build. So we kind of go in and as we're building it, we just keep it alive with what stage we're in and what day, so that we can refer to that. And then the other important thing that I found cool about this is basically that this project page is kind of the root node. If you think about all the information about a project as kind of a tree of information, this page is the root node of that. And so all of the relevant, tech design docs for this project, the visual design, maybe like videos about how it works, they all should be kind of rooted at this node. And the thing that's important about this is that information naturally has its own lifetime. There's a bunch of information that's specifically relevant to this one project, and it should kind of move along with the project as we move this project page along, as I'll show a little bit later. And so it's really nice to just have one place to talk about this the unit of work and have people ask questions and self-serve on the information.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think this is a common thing I see in like all of our customers' roadmaps where like you literally like dump everything relevant into this one card. So like you never have to go searching for any information ever again, right? Like anything that's related to pie charts, you put it in here.
Right.
Any questions that were asked in Slack, you put it in this this nice FAQ toggle list that you have. Everyone knows like, okay, on September 3rd, this is what we did. On October 15th, this is when it went to closed beta, etc. So this is really awesome to see.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice as compared to a bunch of scattered docs, some of which are like, here was the initial, design doc, and then somewhere else is the tech design doc, and somewhere else is something else. And it's nice to have it unified.
Yep. There's actually a couple of great questions that people are asking. So let me see.
Sure.
Mohammed is asking who updates the board/pages? Does each person manage their own cards? Do you have things only certain people can update? So it's kind of a 3-part question, but it's a good question.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the hierarchy of Notion lends itself well to this, where if I just go back to this product engineering. So basically we have these top level pages for each kind of group at Mixpanel. So this is product and engineering. And within here, it's mostly update. We use the permissionings feature to basically allow, edit access for people in product and engineering to keep these things up to date. And for everybody else in the company, it's read only or comment only. And within these, we have all the things that product and engineering would care about. And if you go even deeper, like individual teams have their own kind of team homepage. And again, similarly here, like people on the specific team keep it up to date, and go from there. So I think most people have comment access to everything, and then like full access to modify whatever is within their kind of tree of information in Notion.
Nice. Yeah, and like you can also assign a lead or like a DRI, a directly responsible individual, right? And then like everyone knows in that card, like, oh, VJ is the one who owns pie charts, like ask VJ all your questions.
Right.
So if you use like a person, like yeah, like the lead up here is Ileana Garcia. So then you know like Ileana is the one in charge, and should be updating everything. There's a couple other great questions. I think there's a couple on, so Robert, or let's see, Vishal is asking for the roadmap. Can you see a month by month view with tags such as design, investigation, delivery? And then Benz is asking, do you use the new timeline view for your roadmap? And I think both these questions are asking about the same thing, because Notion actually just released our timeline view, which I hope is really exciting for everyone. So Vijay, have you tried it at all?
Yeah, I tried it immediately. So I think we haven't we haven't made a view for this for our project roadmap, and primarily because we're still, kind of a startup and quite nimble. So we don't really obsess about like the dates between when something shipped to going beta to going GA. However, we do, like, at least while we're building it. However, we do that after we've built it, when we're kind of retrospecting on how did something go. And usually, so we have actually a separate table that links into this table called retrospectives, that just basically has like, okay, for each project, when did we start? When did it reach each stage? What is it? Like, what were we working on for what periods of time this year? And could we have done better? And for that, we now use the timeline view, and it's been super great to just see like, at this point, we had like this many things in flight. Like maybe we were doing too many things at once, or, these things should have been sequenced a bit better or whatever, but it's pretty cool. I would recommend checking it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, if you have this roadmap and you have like a deadline property, then like you can actually just create a new timeline view, and it'll start automatically associating the Gantt chart view with that deadline. So Vishal, I hope that answers your question. You can see a month by month view of like all your projects. Rigo's asking, you mentioned this roadmap is meant to be high level. So where do you add and maintain detailed requirements? So I think Vijay, you showed that very briefly, right? Like at the bottom.
Yeah. So, right. I think, yeah. So this top level page is pretty high level. Any sort of like long form requirements, you can just add that as nested pages underneath here, that are rooted from this node. We also found it kind of useful to just collect like questions even before we've answered them. Just like, here are things the solution will ultimately need to, handle for or solve for, and this FAQ that people at the company can actually like leave comments on and actually add to themselves, so that we can just keep track of what is the running list of questions that anyone at the company has about this as our requirements evolve. So yeah, typically we use a mixture of this FAQ, which is more crowdsourced, and we will obviously write like a formal requirements thing, and leave it under this page.
That's awesome. Amanda is asking, and actually this like dovetails with my next question. So what happens like when the pie charts project either changes status, and then what happens when it's done?
Yeah, sure. So when it changes status, I mean, we just kind of do this ceremonial dragging of it over to the next status, and move it along. Eventually, when it's done, we will drag it into GA, which is just another status. I just happen to hide it because we ship a lot, and we have a lot of things under GA, so that column would just grow forever. So it's kind of just like a quick resting place for all the things that we've shipped. And in terms of how we communicate that more broadly, so people can definitely follow this page and subscribe to updates. But what we historically did was send an email internally at the company to just celebrate, hey, we built this thing, here's who built it, give them a high five, or like a virtual high five, as it were. And now, and previously that would contain all the details of what we shipped. Now it's become, this is kind of the living source of truth for that. And the email is just a pointer into Notion that says, hey, for more information, check out this card, which is nice because as things move from status to status, like things change about them, and it's important to have like one living source of truth there. But yeah, to answer the question, we just drag things along and then usually send an email with a link to the Notion card to celebrate that we shipped it.
Yeah, that's great too, because I think the second part of Amanda's question was like, how would someone find the specs even when a project has been done, right? But the nice thing in Notion is like you don't delete anything. You just like drag into GA and then yeah, you can click here. And then anytime you can go into the archive and find all the stuff again. But it also like keeps all the only the active information on the top level board, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then I just want to make sure we answered everyone's questions. After your so Hubert's asking, after your features go live, do you move the product page information elsewhere or keep it in the same place? I.e., do you distinguish between live features and ones in development? So I think that's the same question, right? It's like all the live stuff is in GA.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Great. And then let's see. I think my last question on the roadmap is like, how has this setup just changed in general? Like, how has it changed how the team works?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, I don't. It's definitely not kind of a magic wand process that suddenly everybody's really disciplined about writing these and putting this in one place. It's definitely, it's still work, right? You still have to write this in a clear way and organize information underneath it. But I think as the tool, it gets out of your way to do that. I think the main thing is that we are really upfront about here's what's in what stage, and because it's kind of put centrally and really easy to communicate to the whole company, we're really committed to keeping this live, because essentially it minimizes all of the random, or I guess, again, I'll do an engineer explanation. Like we have N people in product and engineering and M people in go-to-market. And if you don't have a central place for them to self-serve, then it's, N by M amount of communications going on, versus there's this one place we can all update it. Other people can self-serve and there's not, hundreds of Slack DMs going on. And then, so I think that's a big one. People can just go see it and just link to this, and kind of self-serve on the information. And lastly, I think when we, like, previously the final snapshot of what did we ship was just in that email that we would send out to the whole company. And I think that definitely had problems where when we shipped something to beta and GA, like we'd have multiple copies of that email, and anytime you have copies of something, information goes out of sync. So having it in one place definitely helps keep things in sync.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's nice to hear that there's not like now you don't have like 50 Slack threads with like different people asking you different questions. And it's a lot more organized, right? And people can come in, like you said, and self-serve. I'm just looking at, God, these questions are great, guys. Keep them coming. Let's see. So Michael had another question about, so without Jira, how do you manage user stories, epics, features, bugs? How do you assign them to correct team and prioritize? And then he also is asking, can you also measure number of bugs per project? So I know that's a lot. Maybe we can answer the first one.
Yeah. So I think for daily task tracking, I think that's something we're probably going to cover in a few minutes, but basically maybe I can just jump to that since the question is so relevant to it. Basically each team kind of manages their own tasks, somewhat, in their own way. This is how we manage tasks. Like we have our own task database that's specific to our team, and we create stuff. So I think it's slightly different than Jira in that there's not, it's not the case that somebody else is assigning tasks to us directly into our task database. I think there is a system where, like, if support gets a ticket, they'll escalate that to somebody and then we'll create a task. But it's a lot of it is just keeping track of what we're working on and capturing interrupts and taking stand up as that period of time where we categorize that on our local team's task board and kind of keep that independent from all the other teams so that everybody can use the system that works best for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, Vijay, just to also point out, another great thing is like for any card on a board, you can link it to another card in another board. So like it's called linked databases, right? So say you set up your roadmap board for like the high level projects like pie charts, but then under pie charts, you have like so many other small granular tasks. So you can actually link them to the pie charts one. So that basically like models the epic story hierarchy that you have in Jira, and like in Notion, you can just choose however you want to do it. But if you have like smaller things within a bigger project, it's very easy to link them together.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think you can use the rollups feature to basically say, okay, how many bug cards do I have linked to this main card, and just like summarize it as a count, and you can see like, okay, this one produced, 10 bugs or something. So
Yep, exactly. And you can also even, this is a lot more advanced, but you can also like set up percentage done, right? So like if you had 10 bugs for one card, then like if 8 out of 10 are done, you can see like the 80%. So that's a little bit more into how you could, if you wanted to bring over more stuff from your Jira workflow, then you could replicate that in Notion. Great. So yeah, awesome questions, guys. I think we're gonna move on to, I know Vijay already is showing us the stand up, but awesome to see your roadmap, which again, you said houses all your big projects and your high level overview that anyone can access. So did you wanna kind of go into more detail about this day-to-day stuff, like your stand-ups and the more granular tasks?
yeah, definitely. So yeah, this is more of the, a couple times a week, our team meets for stand up. And again, I think this is our team's workflow. Not every team in Mixpanel uses this exact thing. Everybody has their own kind of custom setup, but it's I think directionally similar. So yeah, the main idea is each stand up has this kind of standing fixed agenda, and in each one somebody is taking notes about the updates for that stand up, what tasks are complete or blocked or pending, and follow us up on any follow-ups. So I guess, yeah, there's a few things I can go over here. So like the main thing to think about is that this is basically like our virtual whiteboard, as if we were doing stand up in a real office with a real whiteboard, where everyone can give their updates. We write everything down, so if someone misses it, they can still find the information. We can follow up on things that need to be followed up on, and we have this nice sort of setup that works for us.
Yeah, this is awesome. So like, I guess seeing this from my perspective, it seems like it helps to just keep those big projects on track and like make sure, okay, like we're actually shipping at the speed that we want to. And then also, like you said, during COVID times, right, for remote work, like this kind of just helps to over communicate with your team, right, instead of just assuming like everyone knows what's going on. I also see like it's great to see like you have a pretty lightweight template, right? Like it's mostly text based. It's not too fancy because it's what you need for a twice weekly stand up. Can you talk about this like agenda you have here, and like I see you have under big project status like pie charts. Is this linked back to the roadmap?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, but basically every stand up follows the same sort of template. So one cool feature about Notion that we use quite a bit is this template feature, where if you have a kind of standard note taking format for a particular recurring thing like stand up, you can define this template button that if you click it, it'll generate whatever you want. So we use that to just kind of generate, like every stand up will have updates from everybody in the team and discuss any top level items or follow-ups. So that part is kind of nice. And yeah, the big project status is just to kind of remind us like, okay, here's the big things that we're working on and what stage they're in. Like I mentioned before, having this linked here makes it really easy. Like if, for example, one of the updates is, oh, we just launched this to everybody, it's super easy to go to pie charts and update that status to GA and then go right back. So it kind of, having it in one place kind of helps keep things in sync at all times. The other thing that's kind of cool is the follow-ups piece, where it's kind of just a lightweight mechanism where you can just kind of remind someone to follow up on API or something. And the idea is that at the next stand up, presumably this will turn red because it's overdue, and we'll check in on that follow up and see how it went. So it's a good way to set reminders for ourselves in one place. Yeah, and then finally the task table is just so that everything we're working on is mapped to some task here. And again, given that the notes and the tasks that they refer to are in the same place, it's super easy to keep both up to date with respect to each other. So it's super easy for me to just say, oh, this sounds like a task. Like we can just add one here, assign it to that person, and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It seems like what you have here, let's see, Monday, last Wednesday. So do you just keep like the most recent ones? Like where do you put the old ones?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very simple and text-based, so we can just actually drag and drop into this toggle list here, which kind of hides all of our it's kind of an archive of all of our historical stand-ups. I prefer kind of this like flat structure rather than kind of nested, like, okay, this was the previous month and whatever, because it's just nice to, if I really need to go and refer to this, I can just open this and Control F in the page and find what I need to look for. But at the same time, it's easy to manage to just drag this over.
Yeah, I'm seeing this pattern of like basically hiding the archive, but having it still be like very accessible, right? So you just have this long tail of information. And the other thing that I like about your setup here, so I've seen a couple of other like different daily stand-up templates, is that like because it's flat like this, it's very much a dashboard. So you can kind of just look at it from a glance and know what's going on with your team. So that's very smart design.
Right. Yeah. I think that, yeah, that's one of the cool things is I mean, we didn't even start with this. Like we had a completely different workflow, and then we've like really iterated on it as we've, progressed through remote work to arrive at our kind of like perfectly well-gardened dashboard. But every team has their own kind of workflows, so it's easy to customize.
Yep. What did you do before you had this template?
Yeah, so I mean, when we were in person, we didn't actually even take notes in stand-up, which was, again, just the luxury of being all in the same room. So yeah, we actually just came from mostly doing like very little or any stand-up process to this. I think there was a time we were just using Jira. There was a time we were using like a spreadsheet to manage tasks for some reason. But I think just the simple text-based thing works really well for us compared to those things.
Yep. That's awesome. And then I think like the other nice thing that I would call out here is what you were demoing earlier, right? It's like when you're talking, if you're standing in a room together, like of course you're talking to each other and talking about like, oh, we should follow up on this or do this action item. But I guess like if you have this whiteboard in front of you, it's really easy to immediately like create a task and then like actually assign it and then set reminders to check on progress. So you're actually moving forward on that item.
Right, exactly. Like if like a bug comes in, we can just do something like this, open it and assign it to somebody, and add some context here, and we're off to the races. And
Yep.
that's really nice to be able to do it in one place.
Yep. Cool. And yeah, I think like it's nice that this task board isn't too over featured or too technical. So it seems like pretty easy to create and manage. Not only like, it doesn't have to be just the product engineering team who have this sort of setup. Like I'm on the marketing team, we have something pretty similar. So it really is like nice to see like you can just customize it for whatever you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So let's answer more questions. I see a bunch coming in. So I think we answered some of them. So Mike and Helen were asking, I see past stand-ups, how do you organize those? I think we answered that. And do you keep a history of your previous stand-ups, or does this page just get updated every week? So yeah, I think it sounds like you just put everything in the archive, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So Pedro, actually Sebastian is asking, how do you track hours spent on the tasks? So I don't know if you want to answer that for like the more granular ones, or maybe go back to the roadmap, Vijay.
Yeah, we don't really track at that level of granularity. I think we could achieve that effect if we basically maybe like viewed this as a table and just kind of had like an automatic, like when was it created, and then at every stand up that it's the task is still going, we could just update it with like how many hours were there, and again using the roll ups thing, join it to the project roadmap table and figure out like how many hours were spent collectively on this. We aren't quite that organized, but that's definitely possible. But
Yep. Yeah, you can use the roll up feature again. And we're gonna send a bunch of templates like specifically for engineering tasks to everyone's inboxes. So I think I'll make sure to include one that has those the hour property. Let's see. So Pedro is asking, how long do the project live in the roadmap from research to GA? Do you break projects so they have similar durations and avoid being like too huge or too small?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think in general, it's just kind of good principle to have them be similar duration, just so that yeah, it's also just like good product design to like minimize scope and not kind of absorb it forever. So yeah, I think most of these are on the order of 6 to 12 weeks. Obviously, there's something, again, it kind of varies per team, but we're trying to centralize on that amount of scope. And then yeah, we, like I mentioned, we just drag things over, and eventually when something's GA, it just ends up in here. So it's out of the way, but still accessible.
Yep. Sorry, I'm gonna throw you more questions because there's just a bunch coming in. Hubert's asking, do you centralize all of the go-to-market documentation like training docs, launch plans, marketing on these same product pages, or is that all housed in a separate centralized location within the Notion workspace?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we typically do some of the, for most features that are fairly lightweight and don't have like a big sort of marketing go-to-market process behind it, we typically house it inside. Like for example, I don't know if that's linked specifically in the page that was here, but in the pie charts page, but we would have, for example, like what is the email that you want to send to your customers if you want to invite them to the beta, and what is the table of customers in the beta for this feature. It's definitely a trade-off, like that for some of the bigger, like for example, our marketing team might want to have a marketing calendar that they want to, cross-reference projects in, and so they can always link to like they can have that as a separate thing that they manage and link to our projects from there. But this is more like just for us to say, for this project, like what is all the work and marketing and reach out and everything that's done for it, and what template should you use? It should all live here, mainly from the principle of when this thing goes to GA, all of that kind of follows with it, and it's not left like lingering somewhere else. So that's the main principle, but it's a trade-off.
Yeah. Yep. Actually, do you want to open the sidebar just to show them like how it's set up, where like marketing has a wiki, right? So yeah, like marketing. Yep. So like, external calendar, there'd probably be like, this is not like an exact, oh yeah, not external, editorial calendar. So this is not like an exact replication of your Mixpanel's marketing team, but I think this is like actually for Notion, like my team in marketing, when we do launches, we do the exact same thing. Like we'll have a calendar of like, okay, here's all the launches that are happening, and then within each card, we'll link to the product roadmap, which is accessible to everyone. Just so people have the full, like they have the launch plan, but then if they want to know like what's actually shipping and what's the scope and the requirements and the user stories, they want to know how to best like describe what's shipping, then they can go to the roadmap. So again, everything is linked together. Cool. Let's see, one more question. I think we have time for one more question, then we're gonna have to wrap up. It's gone by really fast, but thank you guys so much for all of the really pertinent questions. Okay, let's get one from Thomas. How do you integrate user feedback into your roadmap? Noticed a user research doc earlier. So I don't think the user research doc is built out, but Vijay, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. I think user feedback comes from a bunch of different channels, and a lot of it comes from Salesforce and a few other systems. So we actually have like a job that standardizes that separately in Google Sheets, and just waiting on that Notion API. But the main purpose of that user research table is to collect basically like each row in the table is like a customer call that we've done, either with a prospect or a customer. And the nice thing about that table is that I guess it's not filled out, but yeah, maybe there's a template for it as well online. The idea is, yeah, each row is a customer call. It has a link to the video, maybe the video password optionally. And because each row of a table is also a page, you can kind of put all the notes from the conversation and leave comments and do all that on that. And that's really kind of democratized user research. Like it's really easy for someone to just go to the user research table, look at all research that's related to one particular class of features that we've shipped, and actually listen to the calls. So it's just kind of like a log of every call we've had and notes from those calls. So that's been pretty helpful for us.
Yep. And we can definitely send a user research template in the follow-up. So I'll make a note to do that. Great. We have 1 minute left if anyone wants to stay over, but we're just going to wrap up here. So Vijay, thank you so much for just walking us through everything. I know this is a lot to throw at everyone, but hopefully it's been a little bit helpful to see inside like an actual actual working workspace for Vijay's team. I think I have one last question for you. If there's one thing that Notion has really enabled for your team that's been the most impactful, like what would you say that is?
Yeah, I think it's mainly having one place to go for all sort of work-related knowledge, and it's really the all-in-one piece that's been really helpful for us, especially in remote work time. So that's been really great for keeping a team of our scale in sync, and kind of like up to date with the heartbeat of what everyone else is working on.
Yep. Yeah, it sounds like just from everything you've shown me, it's like everyone, not just the engineering team, but like across the company just has a better grip on, what we're shipping and why at all times, which I think is a challenge for like any company, right?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's
Yep.
still not without its challenges. I think we still have a lot to figure out, but Notion's been pretty helpful in that regard.
Cool. That's great to hear. Cool. And then Vijay, did you want to talk a little bit about the Mixpanel team?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, I hope this has given you, first of all, yeah, hope this is helpful and it's given you kind of a glimpse of how we work and organize things at Mixpanel. We're obviously a very product-centric, product-heavy team, and really care about building a great, like fast, delightful product analytics experience for our customers for our customers who build products themselves. So we're really building for teams just like us, and that's a really exciting place to be and work. So if you're interested in joining us, you can check us out, mixpanel.com/jobs, or just message me on LinkedIn. And yeah, really happy to have done this with Notion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vijay. If you can just, I'll just share my screen really quickly, just to give people a couple of links. Cool. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today, and really appreciate the caliber of questions coming in. I hope that we were able to answer at least some of them. So yeah, just reach out anytime. I really encourage anyone on the call here to visit our notion.so/enterprise, especially if you have a really large team. Vijay is on our enterprise plan and has been talking about how, I hope you've seen through this call that for a large team, it's really helpful to have the enterprise features, or reach out to us at sales@makenotion.com. Just want to leave you with another confirmation that we will send the recording to everyone here who registered, even if you didn't attend, as well as a ton of other resources. And I made notes to send specific templates that pertain to the questions that were asked. So please check your inbox for those. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And have a good morning, good rest of your morning, or rest of your good night, wherever you are. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.